Chapter 4201. It's a very familiar feeling. That pair of inky black eyes are bottomless, but there seems to be some kind of surging emotion buried within. But after a closer look, there's nothing there. Minwei asks, "Who is this?" The two demon guards quickly bow and say, reporting to Elder Minwei, "This person is an old acquaintance of the princess. He came to see Her Highness." Minwei looks at the old man a few more times. He only feels that his brows are indescribably ordinary. Even if he's thrown into a pile of demons, he probably wouldn't be able to recognize him. He doesn't understand where this familiar feeling comes from. Finally, he waves his hand, signaling them to leave. After the demon guards lead the old man far away, the old man suddenly stops, looking in the direction where Minwei disappeared, and smiles softly. That smile is indescribably sad and desolate, but it quickly fades away. The demon guards bring the old man into the room and leave. When there are only two people left in the room, the old man suddenly kneels respectfully to the ground, kowtowing to Mu Yan. "Greetings to Her Highness." Mu Yan smiles. "I'm really not used to you being so serious. It's more pleasing to hear you call me little girl." The old man's body sways slightly, and he stands up. Her Highness's life-saving grace. This old man doesn't dare to forget it. If I don't show some respect, it won't be justifiable. Life-saving grace? Mu Yan stares blankly, then reacts. "You mean those healing magic pills? That won't heal the wounds on your body. In fact, your magic nucleus is very strange. It's far more than just a simple injury. My magic core can at most slightly repair the scars on your magic nucleus, but it's almost impossible to make it completely recover." The old man stares at her blankly. After a long time, he shows a smile and lets out a long sigh. "Being able to slightly recover is already all my hope. Her Highness, this old man offended you in the past. Please be magnanimous and don't mind it. Today, I seek an audience with you, because I have a presumptuous request." Mu Yan increasingly feels that this old man is strange. Before, his mouth was full of vulgarities, completely like a beggar in the marketplace. But now his speech is genteel, showing that he once had a very high education and bearing. "He doesn't even look like a demon." She asked, "What do you want?" The old man lowered his eyes and said, "I hope that the princess can bring me back to the demon palace as a servant." Mu Yan narrowed her eyes and looked at him with a faint smile. "You want me to take you back to the demon palace? How do I know if you're a spy or not? At the very least, you should tell me who you are and why you're going to the demon palace, right?" Being questioned like this, the old man's expression did not change at all. He lifted the corner of his robe and slowly knelt down. A dagger had appeared in his hand. His skinny fingers gripped the hilt of the knife tightly, and without hesitation, he stabbed his own heart. Mu Yan is startled by him. Just as he was about to speak, a drop of red water floated out of the old man's wound and floated into the air. The old man's eyes are still drooping, his complexion is deathly pale, and his cracked lips are slightly opening and closing, muttering words that Mu Yan can't understand. Mu Yan's whole body tensed up subconsciously, and the Seven Absolutes sword was unconsciously grasped in her palm. However, the next moment, the red droplets still entered her body without warning. The drowning disappeared. "What did you do?" Mu Yan looked at the old man in astonishment. Chapter 4202. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find this site today. Mu Yan was speechless for a moment. This old man is really strange. His whole body seems to be shrouded in fog, dangerous and unfathomable. She wanted to refuse, but when she saw the old man's pleading eyes, she swallowed it back down. "Then get ready, we'll go to the Demon Imperial City tonight." Hearing this, the old man's turbid eyes suddenly brighten like stars, then he kneels down towards Mu Yan. Xiaoxian Continent's southeast border, Xiqing tribe. Crimson flames soared into the sky, then fell like a meteor, directly burning a huge small mountain into powder. A woman in red slowly descended from the sky, gently waving the long sword in her hand. She whispered, "My cultivation has finally been completely restored. Third-level mystic immortal. I shouldn't be too far behind, right? Although she said so, the woman's face still showed a sad expression. At least, she definitely can't catch up with that abnormal little sister. Thinking of the news she just saw in Tianguang ruins a few days ago, her eyes became more excited. Yiliang-chun, Tianguang ruins. Under the abyss, it turns out that little sister is in the demon race. It seems that it's time to set off for the demon race. Miss Yuma, so you're really here? A loud voice interrupted Lung Yuma's thoughts. She saw a tall young man walking quickly. When he approached and saw her cheeks slightly red because of the flames, his face showed a somewhat bashful expression. The young man scratched his head and said, "The patriarch asked you to go over. He said that Elder Huagu is ready to leave." Lung Yuma nodded, said a word of thanks, and strode to the center of the tribe. The young man hurriedly followed. He walked very fast, but did not dare to walk side by side with the woman in front of him. Dressed in red, the woman in androgynous attire exuded strength and freedom. She was so mysterious and so attractive. No one knew where she came from, but she suddenly appeared in the Siqing tribe's territory. At first, she was on the verge of death, and her appearance was ruined. Everyone thought that she was dead. However, she didn't expect that as time passed, the wounds on her body actually began to heal automatically. The Siqing tribe was kind but exclusive. After Lung Yumo recovered, they wanted her to leave. Who would have thought that the patriarch's daughter would go berserk in her cultivation? The doctors in the tribe were helpless, and everyone thought that her cultivation had been destroyed. At this time, Lung Yuma took out a pill to save her. From then on, the clan leader and his family were deeply grateful to Lung Yuma. Everyone in the clan became more and more fond of this valiant, heroic, and cheerful girl. Young Jacob even had some delusional thoughts. However, after witnessing Lung Yuma's strength, he did not dare to speak up due to his inferiority complex. Suddenly, he couldn't help but take 2 steps forward and whispered, "Miss Yuma, are you really planning to leave the Siqing tribe and go to the Hidden Abyss?" Lung Yuma laughed. Her voice was a little excited. "I told you before, my little junior sister is in the deep abyss. I have to go find her." Jacob wanted to ask if his junior sister was a devil. How could it be in the hidden abyss? However, this little bit of curiosity turned into melancholy when he thought about how Lung Yuma was about to leave. He didn't even have the interest to ask. Jacob lowered his head, his hands clenched into a ball. He finally gathered his courage and whispered, "Miss Yuma, can you stay in the Siqing tribe? To you, I." He raised his head halfway, but found that Lung Yuma had already walked far away and did not hear him at all. Chapter 42:03. The anger in Jacob's heart seemed to have been released, and his face showed a disappointed expression. When Lung Yuma turned around to urge him, he hurriedly followed her, but didn't say anything. The two quickly returned to the tribe. Along the way, many men and women smiled and greeted Lung Yuma. Obviously, they all liked this valiant and open-minded girl. "Yuma, you're here?" The chief of the Siqing tribe saw her and immediately revealed a kind smile. "Elder Huagu has decided to go to the Hidden Abyss tomorrow. Are you ready?" Lung Yuma bowed deeply to the chief and Huagu. "Thank you for taking me to the demon race." She knew that the Siqing tribe originally didn't intend to send anyone to the enchantment banquet. But because she knew that her junior sister was in the Hidden Abyss, she was eager to meet up with her junior sister. The chief of the Siqing tribe decided to symbolically bring people to participate. Huagu smiled. "Miss Yuma, don't worry. The Emperor of the Polar Domain will also be going to the Hidden Abyss. No matter how arrogant the demon race is, they won't dare to attack us spirit cultivators. What's more, the enchantment banquet is to choose a husband for the demon race's princess, so the demon lord won't start a massacre. Miss Yuma, you can find her junior martial sister, and we will be able to return." Lung Yuma's face revealed a somewhat surprised expression. Instructor Mo was also going to the Hidden Abyss to participate in the enchantment banquet?
Why?
Wasn't the enchantment banquet the demon lord was looking for a husband for the demon race's princess? Could it be that Instructor Mo was going to abandon junior sister after making use of her? Although this guess was unimaginable, Lung Yuma was still anxious. She wanted to see her junior sister and know if everyone in the Xiaorao sect was safe and sound. Early the next morning, Elder Huigu activated the transmission array. The Xiqing tribe was very far from the entrance of the hidden abyss. They didn't have high-grade flying magic treasures, so it would take at least half a day to go there by themselves. So Elder Huigu asked to see Tiancheng of the Yin Yang sect in the Nether region, hoping that they could give him a ride. This time, the demon race's heavenly enchantment banquet had invited spirit cultivators from all over the world. There were many third- and fourth-rate sects, aristocratic families, and tribes that did not dare to go by themselves or did not have the ability to go. Usually, they would seek the protection of large sects and aristocratic families in order to let their juniors broaden their horizons without any danger. Xiqing's tribe was adjacent to the Yin Yang sect, and Huigu was acquainted with an elder of the Yin Yang sect, so he chose to seek protection from the Yin Yang sect. The patriarch watched as the light from the teleportation array disappeared. He smiled and prepared to return to his room. When he turned around, he saw Jacob staring blankly ahead, as if he had lost his mind. The clan leader patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't even think about it. You don't deserve someone like Lady Yuma." Jacob lowered his head sadly and walked back to his room. The clan leader smiled and didn't worry too much as he followed them back. Young people would always feel sad when they realized the gap and hopelessness. But after the sadness subsided, he understood that some people did not belong to him, nor did they belong to this small Xiqing tribe. As the patriarch lamented, a streak of light suddenly flew over from afar. The guards outside the camp couldn't help but shout, "Who is it?" "It's me. I'm Wu Meng, I'm back." The patriarch was overjoyed and hurriedly ordered people to release the restriction. Then, he saw a young and handsome monk slowly land on his kasaya. Chapter 4204. As soon as the kasaya landed on the ground, the young girl came down and smiled at the chief. "Uncle Chief, Master Jingyuan and I are back." The chief revealed a kind smile and looked Wu Meng up and down. After making sure that she was fine, he looked at Jingyuan and said respectfully, "Master Jingyuan, did you find the person you were looking for?" Jingyuan's face showed a bit of sadness and absent-mindedness. He put his palms together and said softly, "Ba, I have found what I was looking for. Thank you, Miss Wu Meng, for leading the way. I still have something to do, so I will take my leave first." Wu Meng's originally red face immediately turned pale after hearing this. She subconsciously shouted, "Master Jingyuan, you are leaving now?" Jingyuan did not see the affection in the little girl's eyes and only said gently, "I will take my leave." After saying that, his figure began to slowly fade. However, at this moment, Jacob hurriedly ran out of the room. Chief, Miss Umo seems to have left something in the ancestral hall." Hearing the two words Umo, Jingyuan's figure that was about to dissipate suddenly stopped and gradually condensed back into a solid body. He instinctively turned to look at Jacob, who was speaking. The chief also looked over in surprise and saw Jacob holding a Qianquan bag and hurriedly walking over. "Chief, look, this should be Miss Umo's thing, right? There are many precious pills and talismans in it, as well as some magic tools and crystals. Did Miss Umo accidentally forget to take it with her?" The chief poured out all the things in the Qianquan bag and actually piled them up on the table. And in the pile of pills and magic tools, there was a piece of paper. On it was written in flamboyant handwriting, "Thank you to the Xiqing tribe for saving my life. Lung Umo." The chief's heart warmed up and he could not help but sigh. This child, she had clearly helped them so much, but she still had to thank them so seriously. Suddenly, the paper in the chief's hand was taken away. He turned his head in surprise and saw that the usually calm Jingyuan's face was actually filled with surprise, or even excitement. Umo is here?" The little monk's clear voice slightly trembled. Ever since he learned of second senior brother's death, his lifeless and gloomy eyes shone with vitality for the first time. When he returned from the floating island, his heart was full of longing and joy. He just wanted to quickly tell his master that he wanted to renounce asceticism. However, the master only had the three of them as disciples. Second brother was missing, eldest brother was a man of few words who was rigid and solemn, and now even he himself had to leave Debii Temple. Jing Yuan was reluctant, so he gave himself a year's time. He wanted to search for second brother for another year. If he could find him, that would be for the best. He could repay his master's kindness. If he could not find her, he would not delay any longer. He would resolutely renounce secular life and leave Debii Temple, waiting for Umo to ascend to the cultivation continent. However, in the blink of an eye, it had changed beyond recognition. The news of second brother's death was like a heavy blow that plunged the entire Debii Temple into chaos. Master's grief could be imagined. Even the eldest brother, who had always been serious, was flustered and insisted on using the resurrection lamp to save the second brother. Soul return and soul formation, reversing yin and yang, going against the heavenly Tao. Even if he could resurrect the dead, he would have to pay a terrible price. However, Jing Yuan had no choice. He was born in a pool of blood and grew up in filthy sin. It was second brother who brought him back to Debii Temple with a body full of sin and asked the master to accept him as a disciple. Chapter 4205. For many years, when his master was recuperating in seclusion, it was his second senior brother who taught him and chanted Buddhist Dharma to eliminate the sin and hatred in his heart. Blood Moon was heartless, and Jing Yuan refined his heart. It could be said that his second senior brother gave him a second life. He couldn't watch his second senior brother's soul dissipate and disappear from the world without doing anything. Therefore, he could only change his fate. Heaven and earth wouldn't tolerate him. Could he still be with Umo in this state? If they were forced to be together, would it harm Umo? But even if he told himself over and over again that he had chosen to save his second senior brother, he would have to sever their relationship. But when he heard the news about Umo, his dead heart still beat violently. He wanted to see Umo. He wanted to see Umo more than ever. Only when he saw Umo and held her tightly in his arms did he realize that he was still alive and not the walking puppet he had been in the past. Master Jing Yuan? The patriarch's shout rang in his ears, bringing Jing Yuan back to his senses. Master Jing Yuan, do you know Umo? Jing Yuan opened his dry lips and found his voice after a long while. Is she here? The patriarch sighed. Umo has just gone to the Yin-Yang sect through the transmission formation. If you came back earlier, you would have met her. However, the Yin-Yang sect will not go to the abyss until tomorrow. If you go there now, you might meet her. Jing Yuan held the paper in his hand and slowly crumpled it into a ball. His knuckles made cracking sounds. Perhaps this was fate that belonged to him. If there was fate, then there was no fate. Even the heavens wanted him to miss it and not continue. Since that was the case, he should let go. Jing Yuan slowly put his palms together and softly said, Amit Ba. If fate allows it, we will meet again. Since we are not fated, forget it. I will leave now. His voice was calm, dry, and without a hint of emotion. But his heart seemed to be clenched by something. It was so painful that he couldn't breathe. Break away. Break away. Master said that only by breaking away from the mortal world, abandoning karma, and staying away from the sin of love could one achieve the right result. But no one had ever told him that it would be so painful when he was cut off from his lover. It was far more painful than when he was Blood Moon. It was also more painful than when his sins were cut off inch by the Buddha's light. Master, are you leaving now? Wu Meng reluctantly stepped forward, as if she wanted to stop him. But as soon as she stretched out her hand, it froze in midair. The little monk in front of him had a handsome face, but at this moment, his face was like that of an Asura. His eyes were red and cold like ice. The scariest thing was that his entire body was surging with red flames, as if they were going to swallow him whole. Wu Meng screamed in fright and sat down on the ground. What happened? Master's heart. Grandmaster Jing Yuan, is he suffering from qi deviation? Master Jing Yuan, what's going on?
Come.
The chief's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly commanded the clansmen to retreat. He held a magical artifact in his hand as he nervously looked at the little monk. Just a moment ago, The little monk was still fine, as though he was filled with Buddha's nature. How did he suddenly become so terrifying? He was like a devil that had crawled out of hell. Chapter 4206. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find this site today. Please remember this site's domain name, Book Sea Pavilion, and find your way home. However, there were sparkling and translucent tears rolling down from her crimson eyes. Just as the clan leader was about to speak, a crimson stream of light suddenly came from afar like lightning. Before the clan leader could react, he saw a woman in red jump down from the long saber. While panting heavily, she tore off the talisman on her body. Fortunately, I still have the teleportation talisman that little junior sister gave me. Clan leader, there seems to be something very important in the Qingquan bag that I gave you. As she spoke, she rushed over and rummaged through the pile of things. Not long after, she found a small bottle. She heaved a sigh of relief and said to the clan leader, "This is the bottle that my little monk used to collect the soul-nurturing pond water for me. No matter what, it can be considered a token of love." TSK, it was all because she and her little monk were separated more often than not. She didn't even have a few decent tokens of love. As a result, she couldn't bear to throw away the 2 small porcelain storage bottles. After Lung Yuma finished searching and muttering, she realized that the surrounding atmosphere was a little strange and stiff. Only then did she blink her eyes and raise her head to look. Then she was stunned. Fuck. She couldn't help but curse and murmured, "Am I hallucinating because I miss the little monk too much?" Before Lung Yuma could finish her sentence, her vision suddenly blurred. She was hugged tightly by a pair of hands. It was so tight that her bones made cracking sounds, and she felt waves of pain. It was so tight that she almost couldn't breathe. However, Lung Yuma laughed softly. "It's so painful. It doesn't seem to be an illusion. Little monk, I really saw you." Her voice stopped abruptly, because she felt a scalding liquid sliding down her neck. It was so hot that her whole heart was aching. Lung Yuma reached out and hugged Jing Yuan. She said softly, "Little monk, what's wrong? Why are you so happy to see me? Are you crying tears of joy?" The man hugging her did not say anything, but his hands tightened. Lung Yuma could not help but take a deep breath. "Little monk, are you trying to strangle me and murder your own wife?" She looked to the side and saw that the people of the Siqing tribe were staring at the two of them in shock. For a moment, his scalp went numb. She, a girl, was hugging the little monk. This scene seemed to be quite sensational, right? If she were to kiss the little monk now, would the patriarch and the others be so frightened that they would faint? Forget it, I'm already being treated as a monster anyway. What was she afraid of? Thinking of this, Lung Yuma struggled to break free from Jing Yuan's hand, held his face, and kissed him on the corner of his mouth. The girl said with a smile, "Little monk, why are you so sad? Do you feel happier if I kiss you?" Jing Yuan stared at her blankly. When he came back to his senses, he realized what had just happened. The small monk's fair and clean face was immediately dyed red. He let go of her in a flurry, looking flustered and at a loss for what to do, especially when she came into contact with the shocked gazes of the people around her, who couldn't close their mouths. Even her neck turned red. What did he do just now? When Lung Yuma saw that the shy little monk that she was familiar with had returned, her face immediately bloomed with a bright smile. She grabbed the little monk and jumped onto the red lotus soul-stealing knife. She said to the dumbfounded patriarch, "Patriarch, let me introduce him to you. This is my man, Jing Yuan. Ahem, although he is dressed like a monk now, he will definitely return to secular life and marry into the Xiao Yao sect in the future." Chapter 4207. What do you mean by a long absence makes the heart grow fonder? Bah, I mean we've reunited after a long time, and we still need to reminisce about the past. I'll take my leave first. Without waiting for the Siqing tribe to react, the red lotus soul-stealing blade turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the horizon. The chief of the Siqing tribe, Jacob, and Wu Meng were left behind with dreamy expressions. Because the Yin Yang sect was going to the hidden abyss tomorrow, Lung Yuma used the teleportation talisman that she didn't have much left. She had to get back to the Yin-Yang sect before dawn. Although the teleport talisman had sped up her speed, it could only let her go back and forth in one night. However, Jing Yuan was different. His cultivation had already reached the immortal supremacy stage. There were only a few people in the entire Xiaoxian continent who were more powerful than him. Simple teleportation was not a problem at all. Therefore, it took Lung Yuma more than 4 hours to get there. When he returned, not even 10 minutes had passed. However, they didn't enter the Yin-Yang sect directly. Instead, they landed in a valley behind the Yin-Yang sect. Lung Yuma stood still and looked at Jing Yuan from head to toe. The more she looked, the deeper her frown became. She knew that the little monk's cultivation level was very high. Ordinary cold, heat, hunger, and thirst couldn't harm his body or mind. However, the person in front of him seemed to have lost a lot of weight. Furthermore, he seemed to have lost his spirit and became gloomy and deathly still. Lung Yuma felt a surge of anger and heartache. Who on earth had turned her little monk into this? Just as she was thinking, her hand was suddenly grabbed by someone. Jing Yuan looked at her nervously. "Yumo, did I look scary just now? Did I scare you?" Jing Yuan vaguely knew that he had almost entered the state of blood moon. His body was filled with hatred, and he looked like an Azura. Even demonic cultivators would feel fear and retreat upon seeing it. What would Yumo think of him? This thought made his heart clench. However, the girl in front of him revealed a puzzled expression, her brows slightly furrowed. What did he look like just now? Lung Yuma tried her best to recall. "I was too excited when I first saw you, so I didn't have time to see what you looked like. Why don't you show me again? Was it cool and domineering? Or a demonic one?" Jing Yuan. The corners of his mouth curled up unknowingly, and the expression on his face slowly relaxed, revealing the clear joy and sweetness of a young man. Lung Yuma's heart itched when she saw him like this. She couldn't help but grab the little monk's kasaya and make him lower his head. Then, she gently kissed the corner of his mouth. However, before she could retreat, she was pressed against the rockery by the little monk who had obediently allowed her to tease him a moment ago. In an instant, his breathing was adjusted. There seemed to be footsteps and voices coming from not far away in front of the rockery. Their breaths that were entwined with each other became rapid and hot. Jing Yuan's grip on her palm felt like it was on fire. When the kiss ended, the voices gradually faded away. Lung Yuma poked her head out to take a look. He should be an outer disciple of the Yin-Yang sect who happened to be passing by. She retracted her head and looked at the little monk's eyes and cheeks, which seemed to be dyed red by peach blossoms. She couldn't help but burst into laughter. If someone finds out that you're having an affair with a woman, your innocence will be ruined. Jing Yuan hugged her, lowered his head, and pressed his forehead against the woman's. His voice was slightly breathless. "I've lost my innocence for a long time. I don't want it. I only want you." Chapter 4208. Lung Yuma felt as if her heart was soaked in honey, and her body was filled with excitement and energy that she had nowhere to vent. She wished she could grab the little monk and announce to the whole world that he was her man. However, looking at the kasaya on Jing Yuan's body, she couldn't help but say, "Little monk, haven't you told your master about renouncing asceticism? If you are embarrassed, I will tell him. I will tell him that I have tarnished you and made your 6 senses unclean. Even if you want to be a monk, you can't be one anymore." Even Jing Yuan's heart sank when he heard the first sentence. Hearing the last few sentences, his fair face turned red. His mind was like fireworks exploding, making his whole body hot. He didn't know what to do and didn't like it. He calmed himself down with great difficulty, and the shyness and joy on his face slowly dissipated. "Yuma, there is something I have to do. It may go against the law of heaven, reverse life and death, and eventually bear unpredictable consequences. It's not just me, even the people around me might be implicated. Yuma." Jing Yuan's voice was filled with pain and struggle. However, Lung Yuma's reaction was very dull. "Oh, changing fate, or resurrecting the dead. It's okay, do it once, do it twice. When you see little junior sister, You can learn from her. Maybe you can get away with it. Jing Yuan. What Lung Yuma didn't say was that she was resurrected by her little junior sister using the Shun musician skill, Nirvana of the Stars. Of course, this was her little junior sister's secret, so she wouldn't say it. Just like the identity of the little monk, she didn't want to ask. Everyone has their own secrets, and they can't help themselves. She likes the little monk, and it has nothing to do with his identity or background. Lung Yuma suddenly thought of something. I heard from the people of the Xiqing tribe that Wu Meng was taken away by a master. I heard that the little girl is in love with the master who saved her life. Some people in the tribe even said that they don't know if the master is willing to renounce asceticism and stay in the Xiqing tribe. She slightly narrowed her eyes, crossed her arms, and took a step back. So the master that Wu Meng loves is you? Master Jingyuan is very popular with girls. Jingyuan stretched out his hand and grabbed her back. He hurriedly explained, I only asked Wu Meng to help me find the things second senior brother left behind. I didn't think about her at all. To me, UMO, I only have eyes for you. Puchi. Lung Yuma could no longer hold it in and laughed out loud. I was just joking with you. You actually took it seriously. She reached out and held the little monk's fair, tender, and handsome face. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. I snatched my little monk from the hands of Buddha. I won't give him to anyone else. He belongs to me for all eternity, okay? Jingyuan looked at the girl's eyebrows that were inches away from his. As if possessed, he lowered his head and whispered against her lips. All right. For you, I'm willing to defy the heavens and forsake the Buddha. I'll never leave you, and I'll never regret it. Right before the Yin-Yang sect was about to depart, Lung Yumo returned to Elder Huagu's side. When Elder Huagu saw her, he heaved a long sigh of relief and was about to ask her if she had found the thing. He saw Jingyuan standing beside Lung Yuema. Master Jingyuan, why are you here? Lung Yuma was familiar with the job of introducing her boyfriend. This time, she didn't even stutter and shyness. She directly pulled Jingyuan to her side and said domineeringly, My man. Don't worry, the Polar Domain's sovereign lord won't make a move. The demon race was famous for shielding their shortcomings and disregarding ethics and morality. In the early years, there were rumors that the demon race princess had already set up a marriage contract with the son of the Nether Domain lord. Now, the demon race princess was also in an uproar. What kind of status does the Polar Domain sovereign have? Why would she lower herself to share a husband with another man? However, Jiaming, you will have to suffer. Han Jiaming faintly smiled, lowering his eyes. It doesn't matter. As long as the clan can prosper, as long as we can get rid of the shadow that the Shun music sect left us 1,000 years ago, no matter what I have to pay, I will not hesitate. The expression on Han Yuging's face became more and more gratified, looking at his youngest son, Han Weijiang. This time, you will also go with your brother. Remember to listen to your brother. Don't cause trouble. Chapter 42:10. Han Weijiang immediately shouted, No way? I have to go too? Father, you can't be thinking that one isn't enough, so you want us two brothers to go with that demon princess, right? No. I don't want to be a gigolo for a woman. Han Yugang fiercely glared at him and coldly said, Shut up. I remember that you saved a very tyrannical earth spirit cultivator before. This time, bring him to the hidden abyss. If necessary, let him help your brother. So, father, you're thinking of my guard, Qinjiao. Han Weijiang let out a long sigh of relief. That's good. As long as I'm not going to be the demon princess' little lover, anything can be discussed. Hee, going to the hidden abyss to participate in the heavenly enchantment banquet is also not bad. I heard that one of the 4 great beauties of the cultivation continent, Shi Yanfei, will also be there. That way, I can see her. Han Yuging waved his hand to let them all leave. Walking out of the room, Han Weijiang couldn't help but say, Brother, you really plan to be a gigolo for that demon princess. Don't say that. Did I say something wrong? This princess is clearly a fickle woman. She's already engaged, yet she's still holding a marriage selection. Not only is it enough to recruit a gigolo from the demon race, she even wants to hold a heavenly enchantment banquet. Is there such a shameless woman in this world? Han Jiaming looked down. As long as the Han family can prosper again, it's worth it no matter what I have to pay. Han Weijiang patted Han Jiaming's hand pitifully. Brother, you've worked hard. Don't worry, I'll definitely get my guards to help you at the heavenly enchantment banquet. Don't look at that Qinjiu, he's stupid and can't even speak properly, but he's super strong. Dozens of my guards together aren't his match. When the time comes, he'll definitely help you in the demon princess heart. Xiaoxian Continent, Phoenix Perch Valley. Ling Yuxing felt as if he was trapped in a deep and long dream. He struggled in the dream for a long time before slowly regaining consciousness. It was as if his soul had finally returned to his body. Before he could open his eyes, he heard a sweet voice in his ear. Little Shengsheng, you're finally awake. I was so worried about you. I thought you were dead. Ling Yuxing was startled awake. He abruptly sat up on the bed and looked at the beautiful, weeping woman in front of him. He only felt an explosion in his head, and his scalp went numb. Promise. It was Yan Jishu, the ladyboy she met on the floating island who liked to dress up as a woman. Why was he here? Ling Yuxing looked around and found that it was a cave. Where is this? Why are you here? Suddenly, he paused and stared at the bright and beautiful dress on his body. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and say, "Did you change my clothes for me?" Yan Jishu wiped away the non-existent tears on his face and came over to hold Ling Yuxing's hand. Of course I changed it. Do you think it matches the one I'm wearing? If we wear this and walk out hand in hand, people will definitely think that we are best sisters. Ling Yuxing hurriedly took a few steps back in fright. After taking a few breaths and stabilizing his mind, he put the matter of him being forced to dress up as a woman to the back of his mind. Chapter 40-11. You're so annoying. It's been a long time since we last met. Why don't you ask me if I've been well and if I've missed you? Meeting Ling Yuxing's sinister gaze, Yan Jishu smiled and said, "This is the Xiaoxian Continent's Phoenix Perch Valley. I picked up Xiao Xingxing outside the valley, who no longer looked like a human. I thought you were going to die. I didn't expect little Xingxing to always surprise me. Your wounds healed before I could think of a way to save you." The Xiaoxian Continent? Ling Yuxing ignored Yan Jishu's other words and only focused on one important point. This is the Xiaoxian Continent? Yan Jishu, when you found me, was I alone? Where are my fellow disciples and sisters? Yan Jishu shrugged. I don't know about that, but I was bored when I was taking care of you and found something very interesting. As he spoke, he threw a jade key at Ling Yuxing. This is the key to the Tianguang ruins of the Xiaoxian Continent. Little Shengsheng, do you want to go in and take a look? There's a person called Yi Liangchen who issued a summons for the Xiaorao sect. I remember there was a Yi Liangchen in the Tianguang ruins when I was on the floating island. I didn't expect there to be one in the Xiaoxian Continent. Ling Yuxing clenched the jade key in his hand after coming out of the Tianguang ruins. He looked up at Yan Jishu. Thank you for saving me. I plan to go to the hidden abyss. I've already guessed it. Yan Jishu smiled brightly. But little Shengsheng, you don't know that the hidden abyss isn't a place that spirit cultivators can enter just because they want to. Even the emperor of the polar region can't break the barrier outside the hidden abyss. But the demon race is currently holding the heavenly enchantment banquet. They're inviting young talents to choose a husband for the demon race princess. I happen to have an invitation. Little Shengsheng, do you want to go with me? Xiaoxian Continent, Nightmare Desert. Yellow sand covered the sky and stretched for thousands of miles. Not a single building or person could be seen as far as the eye could see. At this moment, in the endless yellow sand, a small black flew over from the horizon, getting closer and closer. Finally, the figure of a youth slowly appeared, slowly descending. I've been flying for an entire day. My spiritual energy and immortal energy have been exhausted, but I still haven't even seen the shadow of an entrance. Yi Qingfeng, I really believed you. That's why I came here to take a shortcut. The dust covering his face was brushed away, revealing the delicate features of a young man. It was the seventh disciple of the Xiao Yao sect, Lan Luoyu. At this moment, he took out a pill and popped it into his mouth as he grimaced at the small silver halberd in his hand. Didn't you say that if I took this path, I would be able to enter the hidden abyss even if I didn't have a demon identity token or an invitation to the heavenly enchantment banquet? I listened to you and flew to this desolate desert. How many days have I been flying? Where is the entrance you mentioned? You didn't do it on purpose, did you? A bright red light flashed on the silver halberd. A cold and pleasant male voice rang in Luo Yu's ears. I've already said that I can only roughly sense a bit of demonic energy leaking out of a crack in the barrier in this direction. You can choose not to believe me. Luo Yu said angrily. Is your sense reliable or not? To think that you were the grand tutor of the floating islands back then. Now, you can't even sense a crack in the barrier. Your strength has deteriorated to this extent. Don't you feel embarrassed? Yi Qingfeng's voice was still calm and indifferent. Yes, I do. Chapter 42:12. Luo Yu was exasperated, feeling as if he had punched cotton. He woke up from a deep sleep and found himself submerged in water. The heaven-reaching halberd hanging from his waist emitted a white light that covered him, separating him from the water. Luo Yu also saw an unexpected shadow amidst the interweaving aqua light and shadow. Yi Qingfeng. Luo Yu was dumbfounded, thinking that he was dreaming of the Lan family imperial palace. After a while, he asked, Yi Qingfeng, why are you here? Didn't third senior brother say that you sacrificed the ancient life-extinguishing formation to stabilize the floating island and died? Yi Qingfeng gazed at him deeply. His figure was thin and transparent, but the affection in his eyes was higher than the sky and deeper than the sea, as if the person in front of him was his whole world. His voice was low and cold, as if it came from the distant sky, but also seemed to be ringing in his ears. Sorry to disappoint you. I'm still alive. He left a remnant of his soul, but he didn't choose to reincarnate like Yi Aishan and the others. Instead, he stayed by this person's side regardless of anything. Even if he didn't have a physical body and couldn't be touched, even if the remnant energy in his soul would dissipate one day, he still wouldn't choose to leave. This was because the night slave lived and died for Lan Chushi. After coming out of the pool, Luo Yu found a small tribe nearby and accidentally saw Mu Yan's summons in Tianguang Ruins. He really wanted to contact Mu Yan in Tianguang Ruins or directly go to the demon clan to participate in the enchantment banquet. But this tribe was too small and poor. The entire tribe only had one jade void key, and there wasn't even a mabe inside, not to mention the qualification to participate in the enchantment banquet. When he was at his wit's end, Yi Qingfeng said that he sensed the entrance of the demon clan's boundary crack in the nightmare desert. Luo Yu wanted to give it a try, so he ran over. Who knew that after flying for 5 days, not to mention the boundary crack, there wasn't even a ghost or an oasis. The elixir took effect in his body, restoring his spiritual power and immortal power. Luo Yu accepted his fate and set off again. As he flew, he asked softly, Yi Qingfeng, where are Yi Aishan and the others? Are they dead? Yi Qingfeng answered, No, they went to reincarnate. The man's voice was cold, but with a trace of imperceptible gentleness. You don't have to worry. Then why don't you go? After he asked the question, he already had an answer in his heart. His fingers on the flying puppet tightened slightly. The only response he got was the whistling of the wind. Luo Yu smiled lightly. Yi Qingfeng, do you think I'm Lan Chushi? But I am Lan Luoyu, not Lan Chushi. Don't mistake me for someone else. Yi Qingfeng was silent for a while, then said, There is no difference. The man's cold voice was a little hoarse as it slowly rang beside his ear. To me, you are the world. You can call me Lan Chushi or Lan Luoyu. There is no difference. At this moment, it was as if a feather had gently tickled his heart. It was a little itchy, a little numb, and an indescribable throbbing. Luo Yu coughed lightly and snorted coldly. Who are you trying to fool? Today, you thought that I was Lan Chushi's reincarnation, so you followed me. Who knew that one day you would think that someone else was Lan Qushi's reincarnation, so you turned around and ran away. Yi Qingfeng seemed to sigh softly and murmured in an extremely low voice, "Fool, did you think that it was so easy to condense a soul and a spirit that I gave up life and death in exchange for?" Chapter 42:13. He could mistake anyone or anything, but he would never mistake the only soul that bound him. In this world, there is only you. No one can replace you. Luo Yu, what are you talking about? The wind is too strong. I can't hear you clearly. Can you speak louder? Aya. Before she could finish speaking, Luo Yu felt a huge suction force coming from below. The flying puppet under her feet seemed to have met its nemesis, making a caw-caw-caw sound. In a short moment, it had already been torn apart. Fuck, it can't be. The crack is right here. I am still not mentally prepared. As his figure fell, the small silver halberd on his waist once again emitted a sparkling radiance that enveloped his entire body. 10,000 years, the years have passed, I have always been by your side. Xiuxian Continent, Thunder Ray Sect. The huge sect was currently empty, shrouded in a layer of gloomy silence. A year ago, this was a small sect filled with people coming and going, full of laughter and laughter, but now it was completely empty, a scene of desolation. At this moment, a cold-looking man dressed in black was slowly walking towards the only room in the sect that was lit up. His expression was indifferent. His eyes were filled with a thick bloodthirst. His body seemed to be shrouded in a 10,000-year-old frost. The door was pushed open, revealing the figure of a young man sitting in a wheelchair. Chu Emoli, this is the invitation to the heavenly enchantment banquet that you wanted. Yu Zhengqing walked forward, his hand holding a jade tablet on the armrest of the wheelchair. What you promised me, when can you fulfill it? The young man sitting in the wheelchair raised his head, revealing a delicate and handsome face. He smiled and said, "Why don't you come with me to the hidden abyss? Maybe you will see the person you want to see." Chu Emoli, you played me. Yu Zhengqing's face showed anger. He suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Chu Emoli's collar, almost lifting him up. "You said, as long as I help you get the invitation to the heavenly enchantment banquet, you will take me to find the person who killed Nian Nian. Now you want to go back on your words." The smile on Chu Emoli's face did not change. He stretched out his slender white fingers, lightly touching Yu Zhengqing's wrist. Yu Zhengqing felt as if he was electrocuted. His whole body trembled violently. This trembling lasted for dozens of breaths, and when it finally stopped, his body had already fallen limply to the ground. The young man on the wheelchair still had his unchanging gentle smile as he said slowly, "Now, have you calmed down?" Yu Zhengqing covered his face with his hands. After a long time, he started to laugh, but that laughter was more mournful than crying. "I'm sorry, I was too impulsive just now and lost my mind. You've already helped me a lot, allowing my strength to advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time, but..." Yu Zhengqing's voice slowly became hoarse and filled with pain. "I had no choice. I tried my best to find Nian Nian's murderer, but there was nothing I could do." Yu Zhengqing's fiancée was called Lei Niannian. 10 years ago, the two met and fell in love. They traveled hand in hand and eventually promised to spend the rest of their lives together. Even though the imperial minister was just a rogue cultivator, but no one in the Thunder Ray sect despised him. Even Nian Nian's father, the sect leader of the Thunder Ray sect, did not ask too much of him. He only hoped that he would treat his daughter well. But the imperial minister did not want Nian Nian to feel wronged, so he went deep into the forest and killed high-level demonic beasts, wanting to prepare a decent betrothal gift for Nian Nian. Chapter 42:14. Yu Zhengqing's cultivation was only at the early stage of Golden Immortal. He went through untold hardships and finally killed a high-level demon beast. But when he came back with the demon beast's demon core, full of joy, and wanted to marry Lei Nian Nian, he saw the Thunder Ray sect's corpses all over the ground, blood flowing like a river. Yu Zhengqing frantically searched the Thunder Ray sect and finally found a few children in the secret passage. Before the Thunder Ray sect master died, he sent these children into the secret passage and told them not to come out no matter what, so that the innocent children could escape. It was also from these children that Yu Jingqing found out the reason why the Thunder Ray sect was destroyed. From the cracks of the secret passage, we saw them kill our Thunder Ray sect's people one by one. My father and mother were also killed by them. In the end, they only left Sister Nian Nian alone. They put Sister Nian Nian into the pill furnace and burned the fire below. We heard Sister Nian Nian crying for help, but those bad guys, they were laughing. They did not care about Sister Nian Nian's life or death. I heard them say, to turn Sister Nian Nian into a drug, and then bring her back to be refined into the magnificent quicksand by Miss. We were really scared. Sister Nian Nian cried for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, even her voice could be heard, but we did not dare to go out. We had no way to save her. Sob, sob, sob. Listening to the children's crying and recounting what happened, Yu Jingqing only felt that his body was about to explode from hatred and remorse. Why did he leave at this time? Why did he leave Nian Nian alone? 3 days and 3 nights, being roasted in the furnace, being turned into a drug. How much pain and despair must Nian Nian have suffered? Why was he not by her side at that time? After sending the children down the mountain, Yu Jingqing's heart was filled with hatred. Even if he died, he would find the bastard who destroyed the Thunder Ray sect and tortured and killed Nian Nian. He wanted to cut open her internal organs and intestines inch by inch. He wanted to bite her flesh and meridians inch by inch. He wanted her to return the Nian Nian she had eaten, and he also wanted her to taste the pain that Nian Nian had suffered before she died. But what was the use of being full of hatred? Yu Jingqing was just a puny little golden immortal. He could not even find out who killed Nian Nian, let alone find the murderer to avenge Nian Nian. In fact, to the culprit, destroying a mere Thunder Ray sect would be as easy as crushing an ant to death. He would not care about it at all. Just when Yu Jingqing was in despair, he saved Chu Moli, who suddenly fell from the sky in front of him. This man looked weak, but he was unimaginably strong. He looked gentle, but he was so scheming that it made people tremble in fear. With Chu Mo Li's help, Yu Jingqing's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds in just a month, reaching the peak of Golden Immortal. Most importantly, Chu Moli had analyzed the clues layer by layer and finally pinpointed the culprit to Linglong Island. But when Yu Jingqing arrived at the Linglong Island, he found out that the place was completely ruined and there was not even a shadow of a person. He didn't believe that Nian Nian's murderer was dead. He hadn't killed his enemy with his own hands and avenged Nian Nian, so how could she die? Yu Jingqing could only go back and ask Chu Moli. At that time, Chu Moli had just come out of Tianguang ruins and found that he could not contact his junior sister in Tianguang ruins. So he asked Yu Jingqing to find a way to get an invitation to the Heavenly Enchantment Banquet for him. Chapter 42:15. And Yu Jingqing's condition was to help him find the murderer who killed Nian Nian, which was the island lord of Linglong Island. Chu Moli saw that the imperial official had already calmed down, then said in a warm voice, "Have you heard of the relationship between the Linglong Island's island lord Yu Yanran and the Polar Domain's emperor?" Yu Jingqing raised his head and looked at him blankly. What relationship? Yu Yanran should be pleased with a Polar Domain monarch, but the Polar Domain monarch might not be interested in her. This was what Chu Moli had deduced from the information he had gathered in the Tianguang ruins. Yu Jingqing was at a loss. So what? What does it have to do with me taking revenge for Nian Nian? Chu Moli curled his finger and lightly tapped on the armrest of his wheelchair. He absent-mindedly said, "Did I forget to tell you about the effects of the magnificent quicksand? As long as there's a sufficiently pure medicinal catalyst, the magnificent quicksand can completely change a person's appearance, and it can even take away the person's karmic luck." Of course, that was under the premise that the magnificent flowing sand's providence was stronger than the providence of the person whose appearance was stolen. Chu Moli thought to himself, "In this world, it's practically impossible for someone's luck to be stronger than my junior martial sisters. If one had to be counted, it could only be Xiao Bao." Chu Moli continued. Since Yu Yanran is in love with the polar domain's sovereign monarch, and she is also using every possible method to refine the wind magnificent quicksand, what do you think she is trying to do? Now that the people of Linglong Island are gone, if Yu Yanran is still alive, where do you think she will be? Yu Zhengqing suddenly stood up from the ground, his eyes widened, and said word by word. She wants to transform into the appearance that polar domain's emperor likes. Yu Yanran is now in polar domain. I'm going to the polar domain right now. Wait a moment. Chu Moli sighed softly, looking somewhat helplessly at the man brimming with hostility. Could it be that you haven't heard that the polar domain's monarch has already been invited to participate in the demon race's Heavenly Charm Banquet? Participating in the Heavenly Enchantment Banquet means that you want to marry the demon race's princess. If the polar domain monarch is already planning to marry the demon race princess, do you think that Yu Yanran can still stay in the polar domain? Both of Yu Zhengqing's eyes were wide open. The sword in his hand was clenched so tightly that it made a G sound. The 3 words Yu Yanran were chewed on between his teeth. In the end, he said in a hoarse voice, I'll go with you to the bottom of the abyss. But is it too late for us to start now? It will take us at least half a month to reach the entrance of the hidden abyss. Chu Moli smiled faintly. He took out a few pieces of paper from his bosom and casually threw them to the side. There's no need to worry about that. Come and stand beside me. We will soon reach the entrance of the hidden abyss. As the paper fell to the ground, a ball of flames sprang up from the paper. Then, the hard ground seemed to turn into water and began to roll, engulfing the 2 figures along with the wheelchair. Before the scenery in front of him disappeared, Chu Moli twirled the jade ring in his hand. He revealed a pensive expression and muttered in a low voice, Instructor Mo. Junior sister. Demon Race's princess. Linglong Island's jade. It seems like there's some liveliness in the hidden abyss. Beneath the hidden abyss, the Demon Imperial City's High Priest Hall. Elder Wu Zhuang slowly walked into the hall and looked at the center of the hall. She was facing the crystal ball with her palms pressed together and silently chanting something. He bowed slightly and said, Holy Virgin, have you been well recently? The woman was wearing a black muslin dress that tightly wrapped around her body, revealing her graceful and enchanting figure. Her face was also covered with a black pearl veil, so no one could see her face clearly. Chapter 42:16. But this kind of half-concealment added to the woman's charm and mysteriousness. Wu Zhuang's eyes flashed with admiration and amazement. He thought, Saintess Mo Lian is indeed the top beauty of the Xiaoxian continent. Even Xue Jiayi, one of the 4 famous demon generals of the demon race, cannot be compared to her. Mo Lian was not only beautiful, but also powerful. She was the supreme saintess of the demon race. She was the only direct disciple of the demon emperor priest Zhongli. Unfortunately, the successor of the demon emperor priest had to maintain her virginity forever. Once she lost her chastity, she could no longer communicate with heaven and earth and could not predict the future. Otherwise, Wu Zhuang would definitely want to have a taste of such a beauty. Just as Wu Zhuang was deep in thought, he heard a woman's cold and sweet voice. Elder Wu Zhuang, what's the matter? Wu Zhuang quickly gathered his thoughts and smiled. I came to ask, when will the Lord Priest come out of seclusion? As you know, the Heavenly Enchantment Banquet is about to begin. This time, all the young talents of the world have gathered at the banquet. Even a polar domain emperor will come. Mo Lian's long eyelashes trembled slightly. Her hand that was forming a formation also stopped moving. Wu Zhuang did not notice her abnormality and continued. You know their goal. They want to marry our demon princess. If the demon race can form a marriage alliance with the polar region's sovereign lord, that would naturally be the best thing. But Elder Minwei and the others are really muddle-headed. The demon race princess has already been engaged for 3 lifetimes with the first prince of the Nether Realm. Why would the polar domain emperor want a woman who is engaged to another man? Not to mention that we are also looking for a husband in the hidden abyss for the princess's husband. This is simply a naked humiliation to the polar domain's sovereign lord. I'm afraid that the Polar Domain Emperor agreed to participate in the Heavenly Enchantment Banquet not to marry the princess, but to find trouble with the demon race and take revenge for the humiliation. Wu Zhuang frowned and paced back and forth. His voice became louder and louder. And the most important thing is that the Saintess and us elders know. The whereabouts of the demon princess have not been found at all. The news that the princess has been found was only a smokescreen. Once the Heavenly Enchantment Banquet begins, this lie will be exposed on the spot. It would have been fine if there were no Polar Domain's sovereign emperors. At worst, I'll just kill all those foolish spirit cultivators. However, with the Polar Domain's sovereign lord around, even in my demon race's territory, it would be hard to be a match for him. If we can't stop him, the entire hidden abyss will be turned upside down by him. At this point, Wu Zhuang finally stopped and bowed slightly to Mo Lian. Therefore, I came to seek an audience with the Demon Emperor's priest to find a way to appease the Polar Domain's Emperor's anger at the Heavenly Enchantment Banquet. Of course, it would be best if the demon race and the Polar Domain could unite by marriage. Mo Lian quietly listened to him finish before she chuckled softly and said, "It's just divination. There's no need for master. I can do it myself." Wu Zhuang was overjoyed. "Thank you, holy maiden." His slender and fair fingers danced in the air above the crystal ball. After a while, the crystal ball emitted a faint five-colored light that flowed into Mo Lian's body. Fine beads of sweat rolled down her forehead, almost wetting her veil. Wu Zhuang anxiously waited at the side. He wanted to urge her, but he was afraid of interrupting the divination process. Chapter 40:217. Suddenly, Mo Lian fiercely opened her eyes and frowned. The light emitted by the crystal ball below also slowly disappeared. "Saintess, how is it? What's the result of the divination?" Mo Lian stared blankly ahead and didn't speak. Wu Zhuang couldn't help but shout again, "Saintess." Mo Lian suddenly flicked her sleeves, turned around and lightly said, "Elder Wu Zhuang, I'm sorry. My ability is not good enough, and I couldn't divine the result. Elder, please go back."
"What?"
Wu Zhuang still wanted to speak, but Mo Lian had already disappeared. Wu Zhuang left very unhappy. When his breath disappeared outside the priest hall, Mo Lian's figure slowly reappeared. Her eyes stared at the crystal ball in front of her. Her whole body exuded a strong chill, making the female demons around her keep quiet out of fear. They didn't even dare to breathe heavily. Mo Lian looked at the crystal ball for a long time. Suddenly, she raised her hand and a light screen appeared in front of her, reflecting her graceful figure. The veil covering her face was slowly taken off, revealing a devastatingly beautiful face. This face changed from frosty to angry and unwilling, to full of jealousy and hatred. Her mouth uttered a low murmur that only she could hear. "I should be the demon princess, the 3 lives marriage contract, the marriage selection, the emperor of the Polar Domain. They should all belong to me. Why did you take it away?" Demon Palace. "Greetings to your Royal Highness." As soon as Mu Yan stepped out of the transmission array, a deafening shout almost made her want to go back to the immortal slaughtering city. She calmed herself down and looked down. She saw a room full of people kneeling in front of her. That's right, a whole room of handsome men and beautiful women, each more handsome and beautiful than the other. Moreover, every one of them looked up at her with bright eyes, full of love and eagerness, as if they couldn't wait to throw themselves into her arms and push her down on the bed. Mu Yan's cold sweat was about to fall. "You are? We were sent by the Demon Lord to serve your Royal Highness and warm the bed." A handsome man kneeling at the front raised his head and looked at her with sparkling eyes. His voice was even trembling because of excitement. "Your Royal Highness, please choose one of us. No matter who you choose, the rest of us will gladly accept them. We won't fight for them, and we won't complain." After a pause, he couldn't help but say, "Ahem, but we still hope that your Highness can be fair and give us all a chance." "What the fuck? Pick one of you. What fucking fair treatment?" Mine feels that her 3 views are about to collapse. What was her cheap demon lord father thinking? Mu Yan said coldly, "All of you go down. I don't need someone to warm my bed." She said the last few words through gritted teeth. Then, all the men and women in the room who were kneeling down below immediately revealed tearful expressions, just like puppies who had been abandoned by their owners, feeling wronged and pitiful. "Your Highness, you really don't want to take a closer look? We sincerely admire you." "That's right. I've been madly worshipping Demon King Yi since the third round of the betrothal contest. I really didn't expect Demon King Yi to be you. Princess, please allow me to serve you. I'm fine with any position. I guarantee that Princess will be satisfied." Mine presses down on the throbbing veins on her forehead and takes a deep breath. "Fine. If you don't go, I'll go, okay?" Chapter 42:18. She disappeared in a flash and angrily rushed towards Jun Shirtian's sleeping quarters. The door was pushed open with a bang. Mu Yan was stunned when she saw the scene inside. Jun Shirtian was sitting high up in the room. It was different from how he looked indifferent in front of him and was secretly at a loss. The current Jun Shirtian was a true devil lord. He was high up, majestic, and inviolable. Below him, a woman dressed in black stood with her back bowed. The woman seemed to be saying something because the door was suddenly pushed open. The two people in the room turned their heads to look. Mu Yan subconsciously looked at the woman in black. She was covered with gauze and her face could not be seen clearly. But just by looking at her eyebrows, she knew that she was a beauty. Moreover, she did not know why her eyebrows looked familiar. However, before Mu Yan could find out why this woman's eyebrows looked familiar, she was startled by Jun Shirtian, who suddenly appeared in front of her. What happened? Mu Yan composed herself and was about to speak when she saw the woman in black bowing slightly towards her and said slowly, "You must be the noble princess? Priest Hall's Saintess Mo Lien greets the princess." Mu Yan smiled at her and did not say anything. In fact, she had been in a daze ever since she found out that her father was the Devil Lord. She was completely unable to adapt to her identity as the demon race's princess. Jun Shirtian waved his hand and said, "You can leave first." Mo Lien's eyes revealed a look of astonishment. "Devil Lord, the matter I reported, this sovereign will consider it." As soon as he finished speaking, Jun Shirtian waved his hand, and Mo Lien disappeared. Then, the Devil Lord, who was as cold as 10,000-year-old ice, entered a stiff and nervous state. "Why are you looking for me? Could it be that someone bullied you?" As he said the next sentence, the killing intent in Jun Shirtian's eyes suddenly surged. Mu Yan comes back to her senses from Mo Lien's ice-cold gaze before she left, and immediately thinks of her room full of women. She gritted her teeth and said, "What happened to those men and women in my room?" Hearing that his precious daughter was not bullied, Jun Shirtian heaved a sigh of relief. He said indifferently, "Are you not satisfied with those? This sovereign can help you change a batch." "Change a batch? Just how much did you prepare?" Mu Yan takes a deep breath and warns herself to stay calm. "I don't need any devil man or devil woman to warm my bed." Jun Shirtian hesitated for a moment. "It's not impossible for you to like male or female human cultivators." Mu Yan, what the hell? She took another deep breath and smiled. "Whether it's a male or female demoness, a man or a woman, I don't need any of them. Get them out of here." Jun Shirtian felt somewhat regretful and depressed. He didn't expect that his precious daughter wouldn't like the gift he had prepared with so much effort. However, on the surface, the honor demon was still cold and aloof. Even his voice was flat. "If no one warms your bed, won't you be lonely before the Enchantress feast?" Mu Yan presses her temples and coldly looks at the man in front of her. The corner of her mouth slowly hooks up into a sinister arc. "Are you lonely and bored without the company of a female or male demon? So, during the years when my mother wasn't around, you've been partying every night. Aren't you happy?" "No, I didn't." Yen, don't talk nonsense." Jun Shirtian's voice suddenly rose. He couldn't even maintain his cold and aloof persona. His fingers quickly pinched the blood-vein bell in front of his chest. In this life, this sovereign has only loved Yen Xian, and only had Yen Xian. Chapter 42:19. Due to certain reasons, a large number of users are unable to access this site today. Dear readers, please remember the domain name of this site and find your way home. The blood-vein bell shines slightly, then the light dissipates. Mayan snorts coldly, but her heart feels a lot more comfortable. She snappily says, "Since you don't want other women, why do you think I want them?" Jun Shirtian. How can his precious daughter be the same as him? He only loves Ning Yanxin in his life, but his precious daughter can't wait for all the good men in the world to be hers. Especially when his precious daughter has already been abducted by Di Mingju at such a young age. How can he be reconciled? The more he looks for, the more balanced his heart will be. However, looking at Mayan's resistance, Jun Shirtian can only give up on his thoughts. He reluctantly says, "Benzun understands. I will clean up all the magic pets in your room, leaving only 2 to serve." Mayan hears this and lets out a long sigh of relief. Then she can't help but not know whether to laugh or cry. She had previously ridiculed the demon princess in all sorts of ways. She didn't expect that in the end, the person who ridiculed her would be herself. And all of this is caused by her cheap demon lord father. Although it's a big headache, although Jun Shirtian has let Ning Yanxin down, Mayan is not a cold-hearted person. She doesn't know what's good for her. These days, she can clearly feel Jun Shirtian's feelings for Ning Yanxin and his love for her. She smiles and says, "Thank you." Then she turns around to leave. Suddenly, Jun Shirtian's deep voice comes from behind. "Yen Yen, you are willing to follow me back to the demon palace without the slightest resistance. Is there a reason?" Jun Shirtian originally wanted to ask Mayan if it's because of Di Mingju. However, before he could ask the question, Yizichen's expression changed. The girl in front of him suddenly straightens her back and clenches her fists at her sides. Her whole person reveals an indescribable sadness and apprehension. Jun Shirtian's heart is suddenly lifted and he quickly asks, "What happened?" Mayan slowly turns around and says softly, "Did you arrange a marriage contract for 3 lives for me?" "Yes." Jun Shirtian quickly says, "If you don't like it, Benzun will find a way to cancel it for you." Mu Yan moved her lips, and then her voice was low and hoarse, with a trace of trembling. "Can I take a look at the 3 lives marriage contract? If I see the 3 lifetimes marriage contract, will I be able to know if the other party is still alive?" This sovereign has indeed set up a 3 lives marriage contract for you and Luo Yunxiao of the Nether Realm. However, several months ago, the 3 lives stone created a barrier on its own, making it impossible to approach. Now that the stone of 3 lives has been sent into the priest hall, it's a bit troublesome to go in and check, but it's not impossible. Yen Yen, if you really want to see it, I will definitely help you fulfill your wish. However, why do you want to see the 3 lifetimes marriage contract? Jun Shirtian's voice seemed to still be ringing in her ears, causing Mu Yan's thoughts to be in a trance. Why did he want to see the 3 lifetimes marriage contract? This idea started to explode the moment she found out about her identity, but she suppressed it firmly. But he had to face it eventually. "Junior sister? Are you alright?" Mu Yan snapped out of her daze and met Yun Ruhan's worried gaze. She forced a smile. "I'm fine. Don't worry about me, eldest senior brother." Yun Ruhan was about to speak when a wisp of fragrant wind suddenly floated in. Soon after, she saw a woman in white kneeling in front of Mu Yan and said in a sweet voice, "Shueji greets your royal highness." Mu Yan stared blankly and looked down. She saw that although the woman kneeling on the ground was wearing a cold and noble white dress, the tips of her brows and the corners of her eyes were brimming with a charming and flamboyant temperament. Chapter 42:20. Due to certain reasons, a large number of users are suddenly unable to access the site. Dear readers, please remember this site's domain name, initials+org+.com, and find your way home. Just a glance at you seems to have a soul-stirring charm, making people's hearts feel like they're about to jump out of their chests. This is one of the 4 great demon generals under the hidden abyss, Shui. Although her appearance isn't extremely alluring, her entire body exudes all kinds of flirtatious beauty. Unfortunately, this beauty still raises her head and throws Mu Yan a coquettish look, her eyes full of passion and adoration. Your Highness, the demon marshal has asked the subordinate and Yao Dao to take you to the priest hall. Yao Dao, that ice cube is dawdling, I don't know what he's doing. Let's not wait for him. Let the subordinate take you there alone. Mu Yan nods. Then I'll have to trouble Lady Shui. You are the princess. How can you call this subordinate lady? If your Highness doesn't mind, you can call me Shui. Shui says as she excitedly throws Mu Yan a coquettish look. In this time's princess's selection, I was most optimistic about little Qinchin. I didn't expect that little Qinchin didn't become the son-in-law, but princess. Your Royal Highness, have you practiced the devil races techniques before? Did you just change from a spirit cultivator to a devil cultivator? Mu Yan, can she say that she hasn't changed from a spirit cultivator to a devil cultivator? Her body now has internal force, spiritual force, immortal qi, devil qi, and divine power. She can't even accurately say whether she's a devil cultivator or a spirit cultivator. Seeing that Mu Yan didn't speak, Shui took it that she had acquiesced. The adoration and desire in her eyes had already turned into worship. Your Highness, you're worthy of being a heaven-gifted genius favored by the devil god. The other heaven-raised devils wouldn't be able to reach your level of strength even if they cultivated for dozens or hundreds of years. But you've only spent a few months to defeat most of the devil race. Ha ha ha, if those male demons knew your identity, I'm afraid they'd have to find a stone to bury themselves in. It's too shameful. In terms of ability, it's still us women, don't you think? Your Highness, if you need anything in the future, please look for me. Don't look for Yao Dao and the rest who are unreliable. Look at that demon blade. He clearly agreed to bring you to the priest hall at the appointed time, but he did not appear. How can we trust such a demon? Before Shui could finish her words that were filled with the intention of asking for favor, she heard a cold voice coming from the side. Demon General Yao Dao greets the princess. A cold man with a long blade hanging from his waist slowly walks out from behind the pillar. He bows and kneels before Mu Yan. Shui stopped abruptly. Demon Blade, why are you here? The Devil Blade glanced at her and said, I am following the Demon Lord's order to bring the princess to the priest hall. Please follow me. Shui said angrily. Devil Blade, I will bring the princess there. Who asked you to steal the limelight? Princess, let's go. Saying that, he takes Mayan's hand. In the beginning, she was still very cautious when she pulled him up, but when she found out that Mu Yan didn't shake her off, she realized that Mu Yan didn't shake her off. His eyes immediately brighten, and he looks at the Devil Blade provocatively. A certain wooden demon general. What are you standing there for? Lead the way for the princess. Even though he was scolded like a servant by Shui, the Devil Blade is still cold and did not get angry. He turns around and walks in front. But when he turns around, the corner of his mouth curls up into a slight arc. When the 4 of them just left the demon palace, they see a hunchbacked man waiting at the palace gate. Seeing Mayan coming out, he immediately steps forward and bows. Your Highness, can you bring this subordinate to the priest hall? Chapter 42:21. Due to certain reasons, a large number of users are suddenly unable to access this website. Dear readers, please remember the domain name of this website, the acronym +org+.com, and find your way home. The old man raises his head. His pair of turbid and bloodshot eyes stare at Mu Yan. This old man promises that I will definitely be useful to you. Shui sneered. Who are you? Do you know what kind of place the Demon Emperor's priest hall is? You, a mere demon soldier. Want to go in? Are you dreaming? The old man slowly raised his head and glanced at Shui expressionlessly. With just one glance, Shui felt her entire body tremble, as if a basin of ice water had been poured over her body. All the blood and devil qi in her body froze in an instant. The expression on her face became serious, and her voice suddenly became cold. Who are you? What's your purpose in approaching Her Highness? The old man withdrew his gaze and resumed his hunchbacked appearance. He said in a low and humble voice, "This old man is nobody. I'm just a loyal servant of Her Highness. If Her Royal Highness wants me to live, I will live. If she wants me to die, I will die. If I disobey Her Highness's orders, or do anything detrimental to Her Highness doesn't even need to do anything, and I will immediately turn into ashes." Suddenly, Devil Blade asked in a deep voice, "Did you swear on the demon god curse?" The old man smiled but did not answer him. Instead, he looked at Mu Yan. Although he didn't say anything else, his eyes were filled with deep pleading and hope. Mu Yan thought about it and said, "All right, follow me to the priest hall." The group of 5 quickly entered the priest hall. The 3-life stone is placed on the sky-reaching platform of the priest hall. Because the 3-life stone is shrouded in a strange enchantment, no one can approach it, so the sky-reaching platform has been closed for a long time. Your Highness, you can try to approach the 3-live stone. However, if the barrier obstructs you or even harms you, you must leave immediately. When Xue Jiayi said this, there was a rare solemn look on her face. Previously, the Demon Lord wanted to find her whereabouts. He tried to forcibly approach the 3-live stone, but he was almost injured by the barrier. So, Your Highness, please keep this in mind. Maya nods, and under the guidance of the 2 demon servants of the priest hall, she walks towards the Tongtian platform.
Wait.
At this moment, a cold and pleasant female voice came from the hall. Your Highness, I'm sorry, but you can't enter the sky-reaching platform. Mo Lian, who was dressed in black and held a black crystal staff in her hand, slowly walked out under the escort of the magic servants. Priest Hall Saintess, Mo Lian, greets Your Highness. Mo Lian didn't kneel. She only bowed slightly and casually saluted before raising her head. Mu Yan, what do you mean by saying that I can't enter the Tongtian platform? Mo Lian gently twirled the crystal wand in her hand. Her voice was cold and clear. Yesterday, I divined the secrets of the heavens and received a revelation from the demon god. Your Highness is entangled in karma. If you don't remove it, I'm afraid it will bring disaster to the demon race. I'm guessing that it's probably because Your Highness has lived among spirit cultivators for too long, and you've been tainted with too much karma and habits of spirit cultivators. Spirit cultivators are usually cunning and sinister. The sins they bear may not seem obvious, but in reality, they are much more serious than us demons. Xue Jiayi's complexion immediately changed.
Emolian, what do you mean by that?
Are you saying that Your Highness is a sinister and cunning person, and that she bears karma and evil karma? Do you dare to say such words in front of the Demon Lord? The cold curve of Mo Lian's mouth stiffened, and the hand holding the wand also slightly tightened. Chapter 42:22. Then she bowed and said with a faint smile, Your Royal Highness, I didn't mean to offend you. It's just that this is the result of the divination. I have been enlightened by the devil god, so I have to tell the truth. Mu Yan's mouth slowly hooked up, so before I find a way to eliminate the karma and evil fate of Your Royal Highness, please don't enter the priest hall again. This is an important place related to the fate of the demon race. If anything goes wrong, the demon race may usher in a dead end. No one can afford the consequences. Mo Lian's eyes fell on Mu Yan's face, her eyes deep and bottomless. Of course, if Your Royal Highness is willing, it's best not to approach the demon palace. That place is also closely related to the fate of the demon race. The Demon Lord is the supreme leader of the demon race, and your biological father. I think Your Royal Highness would not want to bring disaster to the Demon Lord because of your own reasons, right? Before Mo Lian's voice fell, Xueji raised her hand, and there was a bang. Several magical artifacts placed in the priest hall, as well as the crystal ball in the center, shattered with a loud rumble. Xueji's eyes were cold. Mo Lian, do you want to die?
Swish, swish, swish.
Black shadows flashed. In the blink of an eye, dozens of people holding magic wands surrounded Mu Yen and the others. These demon attendants were all tightly wrapped in dark red cloth. Their bodies exuded cold, killing intent. Mo Lian sighed softly. Demon General Xueji, why are you doing this? I'm just telling the truth. I understand that you want to protect your Royal Highness, but you shouldn't have destroyed the Demon Emperor's priest hall and triggered the killing order of these blood servants. Even I can't stop it. Xueji sneered. So what? Aren't they just blood servants? Do you think I can't deal with them? Emolian, wait for me. When I leave the priest hall, I will go to the Demon Lord and complain about you. I don't care if you are the holy maiden of the priest hall or the only disciple of Lord Zhongli. If you offend your Royal Highness, the Demon Lord will make you suffer. Mo Lian tightened her grip on her crystal wand and looked at Mu Yen with deep hatred and jealousy. However, it was only for a moment before her expression became calm again. Lady Xuejie must be joking. I didn't summon the blood demon servant. Everyone here can see that I only have respect for the princess. How could I have the intention to offend you? However, the decree of the devil god cannot be disobeyed. Your Highness, you will understand this subject's daughter, right? As soon as Mo Lian finished speaking, the blood servant, who had been waiting for a long time, could not wait any longer and pounced toward the snow girl. Xuejie shields mine behind her and says sternly, Yao Dao, take her Royal Highness and leave first. However, in the next moment, she was blocked by a tall figure. The slender black saber was unsheathed and slashed down.
Bang!
The two demon blood guards who had just rushed over were directly cut into two. Fresh blood and broken intestines stained the bluestone floor of the main hall. Mo Lian's expression finally changed. Yao Dao, how dare you kill a blood demon servant in the priest palace? Do you know what kind of crime this is? The demon blade coldly looked at her. You can go to the Demon Lord or Lord Zhongli and ask me what kind of crime it is, then tell me. When Xuejie recovered from her shock, she saw Mo Lian's unsightly expression, which made her speechless. Chapter 42-23. He's sword genius. I didn't expect a silly and cold blockhead like you to say something like this. Not bad, you're a good friend. When we get back, I'll treat you to a good meal. Devil Blade stretched out his hand expressionlessly and pulled away the woman who was pinching his face. He then grabbed her collar and shoved her behind him. His face did not relax in the slightest. His eyes were focused on the blood demon servant in front of him, and he said in a deep voice, Your Highness, please stand within the range of this subordinate's domain. Do not leave. The blood demon servants were the invincible guards of the Demon Emperor's sacrificial hall. Although there were only 12 of them, their combined strength was comparable to the entire Gorfine team. And the most powerful thing about them was that the blood demon servant was immortal. As long as there were enough mana crystals to replenish it, it would resurrect every time it was killed. After resurrection, their strength would be several times stronger than before. In the entire Hidden Abyss, apart from the Demon Lord, no one dared to say that he could escape unscathed in front of the 12 blood demon servants. This was also the reason why the Demon Emperor's priest hall was second only to the Demon Emperor's palace. Of course, Xuejie knew all of this. Therefore, she did not argue with Yao Dao anymore. Instead, she protected Mu Yen and the old man behind her. The white silk in her hand flickered as she fought with the blood demon servant. After Sword Genius and Xuejie killed 6 demon blood servants for the third time, their faces turned pale. A drop of sweat rolled down Xuejie's forehead. Emolian, why aren't you telling the blood servant to stop? Xuejie glared at Emolian. Do you really want the blood demon servant to hurt the princess? Emolian calmly said, Your Highness, I'm very sorry. It's not that I don't want to save you, but the blood demon servant only listens to master's orders. Once triggered, it will only stop when the demon defiant god is punished. Just now, Lady Snow Charmer smashed the crystal ball. If she obediently admits her mistake and accepts the whipping of the blood demon servant, Even if she is seriously injured, at least Lord Devilblade and Her Royal Highness will be able to escape unscathed. But now, it's already too late. From the moment you killed the Blood Demon Servant, I was already powerless. Xue Jiayi was about to vomit from anger at this pretentious woman. Even if she had to perish together with the Blood Demon Servant, she didn't want to lower her head. However, when she remembered that the princess was still behind her, she forcefully swallowed her grievances and resentment. Emolian, even if we're unable to leave the priest hall, you can. Hurry up and inform the demon lord. Let him come and take the princess away. We will bear the consequences for the sins that Sword Genius and I have committed. This has nothing to do with Princess. Emolian's eyes darkened as she gently stroked her crystal wand. I'm sorry. I can't leave the priest hall yet. The Blood Demon Servant has been activated. If I'm not here, what if the Blood Demon Servant loses control and destroys the Supreme Sky platform or collides with Master, who is still in seclusion? Your Highness, please be at ease. As long as you stay where you are and don't act rashly, the Demon Blood Servant will probably not do anything to you. Before she could finish her sentence, four blood servants avoided Xue Jiayi and Yao Dao and charged towards Muyan. Mo Lian exclaimed softly, Blood Servant, don't attack the princess. What's going on? Saintess, it's probably because of the evil karma that stains Her Royal Highness's body that the Blood Demon Servant feels threatened. Chapter 42-24. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find the site today. But don't worry, as long as you don't resist, the Blood Servant will not kill you. At most, they will destroy your magic core, burn your devil soul, and make you a waste for the rest of your life. Can the demon race, which respects the strong, accept a waste princess? Even if they can, they will only be looked down upon. Xue Jiayi's eyes almost spurt out fire. If it weren't for the Blood Servant blocking her, she would have already rushed over and torn Emolian to shreds. Smelly whore Emolian, just you wait for this old lady. You'd better let the Blood Servant kill this old lady today. Otherwise, when I get out, I will absolutely tear that face of yours to pieces. Your Highness, quickly leave. Don't worry about us. Quickly leave the priest hall. Mayan looks at the Blood Servant rushing towards her, slightly squints her eyes, and glances at Emolian. From the first time they met yesterday, she felt that this Emolian was hostile towards her. Now it seems that it wasn't her misconception at all. Want to kill her? Let's see if she has the qualifications. However, these blood servants are really troublesome. The more they kill, the stronger they become, and the more tacit they become. They even seem to have a trace of spiritual wisdom. Xue Jiayi and Yao Dao's strength have reached demon generals, which is a high-level immortal king. It is reasonable to say that it is difficult to meet a worthy opponent in the world. But facing these 12 blood servants, they are clearly beginning to struggle. As the number of blood servants revives increases, she's afraid that they will completely fall into a disadvantageous position. If she wants to kill these blood servants, she must find their flaws. Mayan's mind turns, and the 7 Absolutes sword is already in her hand. But before she can draw her sword, a low old voice suddenly comes from behind her. Ha xia sha ma. The old man's pronunciation is very strange, like meaningless syllables, but also like the chanting of an ancient spell. These sounds are like the ringing of a Buddhist bell, hitting the depths of people's souls. Mayan's eyes slightly widen, her face revealing a surprised expression. What is this sound? That strange feeling. She even feels that it's like the music played by the Tian Mo Qin's Shen musician skill. Muyan even forgets that she's currently on a battlefield that's hanging by a thread. She wants to turn around and ask the old man what he's chanting. However, the next moment, something miraculous happened. The 2 demon blood servants that were rushing towards Mu Yan suddenly stopped moving. His face was tightly wrapped in red cloth, revealing only a pair of eyes. Those eyes were lifeless, like lifeless puppets. But at this moment, the pair of eyes quickly turned. Then, the 2 blood wardens slowly bent their legs, bowed their bodies, and bowed deeply towards Mu Yan. Yao Dao, who just killed a blood servant. Bloodstain, who is fighting with the two blood demon servants. Mo Lien, who is waiting for the blood servant to seriously injure Mayan. What the hell happened? Why would the blood demon servant kneel before the princess? Mo Lien suddenly came back to her senses, almost unable to control her emotions. Blood servant, what are you doing? However, the two blood servants kneeling on the ground were motionless, as if they were petrified. Mo Lien clenched her crystal wand so tightly that her knuckles turned white. How could this be? Why did the two blood servants suddenly cut off contact with her and no longer listen to her orders? Why did the two blood servants kneel to Jun Mayan? Mo Lien's distorted face is hidden under the black veil. Chapter 42-25. At this moment, she no longer cares whether she will be discovered or not. She desperately urges the demonic qi in her body to control the remaining 10 blood servants to give up attacking Yao Dao and Xue Jiayi and turn towards Mu Yan. Princess, Your Royal Highness, be careful. Xue Jiayi and Yao Dao desperately rush forward to block the blood servants. Mu Yan regains her senses from the shock just now. In fact, she is even more shocked than Yao Dao and Xue Jiayi. She wants to turn around to look at the old man, but she hears the old man's hoarse and weak voice behind her. Your Royal Highness, please listen to me. This old man's ability is not enough. I can no longer control the remaining blood servants. But even if I have to exhaust my life, I will delay them for a while. Your Royal Highness, please escape as soon as possible and find Lord Demon Lord or Elder Minwei. Mu Yan suddenly turns around and whispers. What did you just say? Can you say it again? The old man raises his head and smiles at her. Mu Yan then notices that the old man's face is pale and haggard, much older than before. Moreover, his spirit seems to be drained, and his forehead is shrouded in a layer of death aura that cannot be dispersed. He says hoarsely, I didn't expect that I would die here after returning to the priest hall with great difficulty. But in this life, I can still meet your Royal Highness and return here. Even if I die, I have no regrets. I only hope that your Royal Highness can promise me one thing. Mu Yan really wanted to say, can you stop talking nonsense and recite those incantations for me again? But facing the old man's desperate and hopeful eyes, she sighs and says, Speak. Your Royal Highness, please remember my name. I am Zhongli. Zhongli? Mu Yan is stunned. Why does this name sound familiar? Right, didn't Xue Jiayi and Mo Lien mention Zhongli just now? Zhongli seems to be the master of the priest hall, and also the demon emperor's priest in the entire hidden abyss. The old man's name is also Zhongli? Mu Yan still hasn't recovered from the shock. The old man's cracked and pale lips gently opened and closed again, letting out a low and hoarse voice. Ha, xia, sha, ma. As strange syllables came out of the old man's mouth one after another, the blood servants who were fighting Blade Genius and Xue Jiayi began to slow down. The old man's face grew paler and paler, and his face aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this time, Mu Yan could no longer care about the old man's physical condition. She was using her ears to carefully capture every syllable that the old man was chanting, as well as the demonic energy and divine soul fluctuations contained in those syllables. 1 syllable, 2 syllables, 3 syllables converged into a strange yet soul-shaking melody. Mu Yan suddenly opened her eyes and shouted at the old man, Stop chanting, let me do it. Saying that, she turns around and sits cross-legged on the ground, the Tian Mo Qin slowly emerging. Her slender and fair fingers pressed on the strings of the zither and suddenly vibrated. Wah!
Ah! Ha! Xia! Swish! Ma!
Even though it was only the vibrating strings, the air seemed to reverberate with the same incantation that the old man was chanting. Mu Yan is overjoyed. She guessed right. Sure enough, she can use the Shun musician skills to transform the old man's incantation into zither sounds. Chapter 42-26. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is unable to find the site today. Dear readers, Please remember this site's domain name, Sea of Books, and find your way home. After the blood servants heard the music, they slowed down as if they heard the old man's incantation. Behind him, the old man's eyes were as wide as copper bells, and his jaw almost dropped. Demon God above. What did he just hear? Her Royal Highness. What is she doing? She actually performed the blood demon's decree incantation perfectly and accurately with the music. He only recited it twice, and Her Royal Highness learned it all. And the scariest thing was that Her Royal Highness' divine soul and sea of consciousness were so powerful. She used the music to control 10 blood servants at the same time. That was not an ordinary control move. It was to make the blood servants completely surrender. Even at his peak, he could not do it easily. That was a talent that only the demon chosen by heaven, who is qualified to become the Demon King's priest, could have. Her Royal Highness was a combat demon cultivator. How did she do it? As the strange music was played one by one, the blood servants' movements became slower and slower. Finally, they became the same as the 2 blood servants. Their red eyes moved crazily and their bodies stiffened. Then they slowly bent their knees and knelt down one by one. Blood demons gather. Greet the Lord. Blood demons gather. Greet the Lord. The blood wardens were lifeless. None of them spoke, and none of them showed any expression. But in the ears of everyone in the priest hall, these words reverberated over and over again. The old man's eyes turned red and tears flowed down his cheeks. He held onto the pillar and knelt down shakily. He placed his forehead on the ground and murmured in a trembling voice that only he could hear, "Demon King above, greet the Lord. Devil Blade, pinch me and see if I'm dreaming." Devil Blade stretched out his hand and pinched Xue Jiayi's face. Xue Jiayi screamed, "Stupid blockhead, you really pinched me. This old lady's face is delicate and tender. If you break my face, you'll have to pay for it." Fiendish Blade agreed softly. However, Xue Jiayi didn't hear him at all. She was still immersed in the excitement that almost drove her crazy.
Sword genius, did you see that?
The demon blood servant actually knelt down in front of the princess? Even the demon venerable couldn't command the blood demon servants and could only intimidate them. How did Her Highness do it? Yao Dao's gaze fell on Mu Yan. His eyes were filled with pure admiration and respect as he muttered, "Yes, His Highness is His Highness." No, perhaps Her Highness was not just Her Highness. He was a powerhouse who was even more heaven-defying than the Demon Lord. He was a supreme demon emperor who could lead the demon race to a higher peak. Mo Lian only came back to her senses when the deafening chant of "Blood demons gather and pay their respects to our Lord" entered her mind. "Your Highness, what did you do? Why did all the blood servants lose contact with her? Why couldn't she control even one blood servant?" Emolian was no longer able to maintain a calm expression. Anger, fear, and uneasiness surged through her. Jun Mayan controlled the blood servant? How could she control the blood servant? If the blood servant was completely controlled by her, how could she explain it to Master Zhongli? Emolian suddenly gritted her teeth, and the crystal wand in her hand fiercely stabbed towards Mu Yan. The crystal wand disappeared from her hand and appeared in front of Mu Yan the next moment. Chapter 42:27. Emolian suddenly grits her teeth and ruthlessly thrusts the crystal wand in her hand towards Mu Yan. The crystal wand disappears from her hand and appears in front of Mu Yan the next moment. Xue Jiayi shouts, "Princess, be careful. The demon blade's long sword is already swung through the air." Mu Yan raises her head while plucking the strings. The corners of her mouth slowly curl up and her fingertips lightly move. The strange, incantation-like music abruptly changed its direction and became intense and surging. Bang! The crystal wand hits the sound wall formed by divine hand weaves the heavens and suddenly flies back. Mo Lian only feels a sharp pain in her chest and spits out a mouthful of blood. The crystal wand falls to the ground, making a tinkling sound. Mo Lian stares at Mu Yan in disbelief. The young girl slowly rose to her feet. There was a mocking smile on her enviably beautiful face as she looked at her. Holy Maiden Emolian, what are you doing? The blood demon guards can't remove the karmic evils on me, so the Holy Maiden plans to do it yourself? A drop of sweat slides down from her forehead. Emolian grits her teeth and wipes the blood from the corner of her mouth. She barely manages to keep her voice steady. Your Highness, what are you doing? The 12 blood demon guards are loyal servants of the Demon Emperor's priest, an existence that even the Demon Lord can't covet. What do you mean by controlling the 12 blood demon guards and making them submit to you? Does your Highness intend to become enemies with the priest hall? Muyan glances at the blood demon guards kneeling on the ground and communicates with them with her divine sense. The incantation to control them naturally emerges in her mind. Her fingertips move slightly on the Tian Mo Chin, and the figures of the blood demon guards slowly disappear. Muyan looks up at the ugly Mo Lien and says with a faint smile, "Oh, is that so? So the 12 blood demon guards belong exclusively to the Demon Emperor's priest? I'm really sorry. I didn't expect that the loyal servants of the priest would submit to me after I casually pluck the strings. How about this? I remember that the priest is still in seclusion. Why don't you wait for him to come out and then let him negotiate with me? Let's see if the 12 blood demon guards are more willing to follow the priest or me. After all, in this day and age, even if it's a master follower, it's still about mutual consent, isn't it?" The smile on Mayan's face is gentle, calm, and friendly. If the people of the Xiao Yao school were here, they would be able to tell at a glance. This smile was just as black-bellied as Chu Moli's. Puchi. Xue Jie couldn't help but laugh out loud while clinging onto Yao Dao's shoulder. Their Royal Highness was really too evil. But why did she like it so much? Mo Lien gripped her crystal wand so tightly that a cracking sound could be heard. Your Highness, don't go too far. In this priest hall, even a demon sovereign wouldn't dare to be as arrogant as you. Don't forget, you still want to enter the Sky Split Pavilion and see the 3 live stone. Have you really thought it through? Are you going to stubbornly insist on becoming enemies with my priest hall? Ah. As soon as Mo Lien finished speaking, she suddenly let out a shrill cry. Her entire body was sent flying and heavily collided with a pillar. In the center of the priest hall, a black-clothed Jun Shirtian slowly descended. His ice-cold voice carries a bone-piercing killing intent, ringing in everyone's ears. This deity doesn't know that this deity doesn't dare to be arrogant in this priest hall. This deity wants to know how you're going to stop my daughter from entering the Sky Split Pavilion. Chapter 42:28. The priest hall is completely silent. Even Mo Lien's groans and heavy breathing have stopped. Muyan looks at the man who is standing in front of her, protecting her tightly. Her expression is a bit absent-minded. From her previous life to this life, she has already gotten used to shouldering everything by herself. She is used to standing in front of her relatives to protect them. For example, her adoptive father Shin Yicheng and her brother Shin Jinglin. They may be very good to her, but they either indirectly hurt her or they are powerless to protect her. This is the first time that someone, in the name of a relative, has stood in front of her and used unreasonable words to shield her from the wind and rain, not letting her suffer any harm. But he carefully hides this fatherly love, afraid that she will notice it. Mu Yan's eyes slightly droop, light circulating in her eyes. At this time, Mo Lien has already recovered from the shock. The shock on her face gradually turns into panic. Ignoring the pain in her body, she stands up in a flurry and kneels on the ground. Your daughter greets the Demon Lord. Jun Shirtian lowers his head and coldly looks at her. The corner of his mouth hooks up into a cold smile. Get out of the priest hall. No, get out of the demon imperial city. From now on, this lord does not want you to appear in front of Mu Yen again. Demon Lord. Mo Lien screams. Demon Lord, you can't do this. What did I do wrong that you want to drive me out? Xue Jie sneers with a face full of ridicule. Mo Lien, are you an idiot? You dare to make a move against Her Highness the Princess and still ask Demon Lord, what did you do wrong? With your brain, you still have the nerve to be the next Demon Emperor's priest? Emolian ignores Shuejiai and looks at Jun Shirtian with a face full of sadness and anger. Demon Lord, is it really like this? In Emolian's heart, you are not a person who will abuse your position for personal gain. The result of this daughter's divination is that Her Highness the Princess will be a hindrance to the rise and fall of the demon race, so this daughter will not let her enter Tong Tian Tower. Am I wrong to do so? But Shuejiai and Demon Blade Darren insisted on barging in and even triggered the Blood Demon Servants. The Blood Demon Servants are loyal servants that Master has carefully cultivated. They are related to the survival of the Priest Hall, but Her Highness the Princess destroyed them without permission, wanting to take the Blood Demon Servants for herself. Who's really in the wrong? Emolien's eyes overflowed with tears of sadness and grievance. She looked at Jun Shirtian with a questioning and expectant expression. You are the supreme ruler of the Hidden Abyss, the existence revered by millions of demons. You wouldn't disregard the laws of the Priest Palace and the future of the demon race, just to protect a daughter from the human race, right? Hearing this, Shuejiai could not help but frown. She really wanted to go up and give her 2 slaps. No wonder she had always hated this Emolian. Her words were always beating around the bush, and she did not look what she looked like. She was just like those disgusting and hypocritical human spirit cultivators. However, before Shuejiai could move, she was pulled back by Yao Dao. Then, she heard Jun Shirtian's low laughter. The honor demon was laughing, but his laughter was extremely cold. He looked at Emolian as if he was looking at an ant that was jumping around. Don't talk about whether or not my daughter is like you and will hinder the rise and fall of the devil race. Even if that's the case, I won't allow anyone to hurt her. Chapter 42-29. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find the site. Emolien's voice came to an abrupt halt. A pained expression appeared on her face as she suddenly floated high in the air. A few strands of dark red silk twined around her neck and drilled into her body, causing her entire body to convulse in pain. Jun Shirtian's extremely cold voice rang in her ears. So what? I only have this one daughter. To me, the entire devil race added together is not as important as her. If a god dares to touch my daughter, I'll slay the god. If a demon dares to hurt my daughter, I'll exterminate the demon. You said I don't have the qualifications to be the demon sovereign? Fine, if you have the ability, come kill me and take over my position. Otherwise, shut up and die. Emolian felt something tighten around her demon core, causing her life force to rapidly drain away. The face hidden behind the black veil finally revealed an expression of fear. She opened her mouth slightly and begged for mercy. Jun Shirtian sneered. Remembering that she was Zhong Li's disciple, he didn't kill her in the end and ruthlessly tossed her to the side. Emolian stood up in a sorry state and looked up at the demon servants of the priest hall. She thought they'd be angry and disappointed by Jun Shirtian's words. However, what greeted his eyes was an expression of worship that was more and more excited than the previous one. Emolian's face twisted under the black veil. Are these people idiots? Are they idiots? The supreme leader of the demon race only cares about his daughter and doesn't care about the future of the billions of demons. Why do they still worship and follow such a demon sovereign? Shuejiai looked at her twisted face and suddenly giggled. TSK, TSK, TSK. Holy Maiden Emolian, if I remember correctly, you were brought back by Lord Zhong Li from the human race's spirit cultivators, right? I think you're also the child of a heaven-raised demon. You used to be a spirit cultivator, but turned into a devil cultivator 30 years ago. However, even though your identity as a cultivator has changed, your way of thinking hasn't changed at all. Do you think we demons are as hypocritical as spirit cultivators? You want to use the disgusting methods of spirit cultivators to kidnap the demon sovereign? You're thinking too much. Our fiend race doesn't like this. What the demons were excited about was freedom, selfishness, and passion. They would cooperate, They would set some necessary rules, but they would not let these titles become a stumbling block to their freedom. Even for those who offered their devil souls to follow him, if they felt that they were following the wrong person, they would not hesitate to sever their connection with those devil souls. They would rather lose their cultivation than live against their own will. In the eyes of the demon race, being able to stand on a supreme position like the demon lord and protect their own daughters, as well as their own important things, was incomparably enviable and worshipped. It was their lifelong goal. Emolien's attempt to use spirit cultivation to sow discord was simply a huge joke. June Shirtian's cold gaze swept across the priest hall's demon servant. "Didn't you hear my orders?" The demon servants regained their senses and looked at Emolien with hesitation. But in the end, he still stepped forward. "Saintess, please leave the priest hall." Scram! Scram! Emolien screamed and pushed away the demon servant, staggering towards June Shirtian. As she walked, she slowly took off the veil on her face and shouted in a hoarse and trembling voice, "Demon Sovereign, you can't chase me away." Chapter 40-30. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find the site. As the sharp voice resounds through the priest hall, the veil on Emolien's face is also taken off. And her next words also spread to everyone's ears. "Because I am also your daughter. I am the supreme first princess of the devil race." The priest hall falls into a deathly silence. Shuejiai's eyes are wide open. Her right hand unconsciously grabs Demon Blade's arm. She doesn't even feel that her long and beautiful nails are deeply embedded into Demon Blade's flesh. She wanted to curse Emolien for speaking nonsense, but the words that were at the tip of her tongue were completely stuck in her throat because of Emolien's face. Because Emolien's face is very similar to June Shirtian's. Even at first glance, the resemblance is even higher than Mu Yen and June Shirtian's. "Saintess, your face." The maid standing beside Emolien widens her eyes. She looks at Emolien, then looks at June Shirtian and says excitedly, Why do you look so similar to the Demon Lord? Are you really the Demon Lord's daughter?" No wonder you never take off your veil, even when you're alone. Are you afraid that someone will recognize you as Her Royal Highness?" Emolien's eyes are already filled with tears. Her body gently trembles. The expression on her face is full of grievance, longing, pain, and unwillingness. She stares at June Shirtian without blinking. "Father, do you still remember Lanke? She was born for you and died for you. In a place that you don't know, she gave birth to a daughter for you. That daughter is me." June Shirtian slightly narrows his eyes and says coldly, "You are Lanke's daughter?" "Yes, I am Lanke's daughter, and also father's daughter." Tears rolled down Emolien's cheeks as she said, "Father, do you know how jealous I was when I saw you searching for my sister with great fanfare and sending all the good men in the world to her for her to choose from? Do you know how unwilling I was? Why is it that even though we are both daughters, she can receive so much love from you, can make you spend so much effort to find her, and even send all the treasures in the world to her, but I have nothing, and you don't even know of my existence?" Shuejiai almost went crazy after hearing Emolien's words. Could it be that Emolien was really the Demon Lord's daughter? It shouldn't be. Emolien was at most 100 years old. 100 years ago, the honor demon was still going through the tribulation in the mortal world to get rid of the lovesick devilish love curse. How could he have given birth to Ink Lotus? Was this hypocritical woman making up a story? As if she had guessed Shuejiai's thoughts, Emolien continued to sob, "Just because my mother was with you 1,000 years ago, and after such a long period of time, you've forgotten about her, haven't you?" "But father, do you know that it is difficult for a demon raised by the heavens to give birth? How much pain did my mother suffer in order to keep me alive? She used up all her cultivation to seal me in ice, allowing the demonic energy and spiritual energy in my body to reach a balance. After 1,000 years, I was finally freed from the ice and began to grow. But my mother also passed away, because of this. Father, when you dote on other women and your sister, have you ever thought about how much pain a female cultivator has suffered for you and how much pain she is to bear for your child? Jun Shirtian frowns slightly, and his face shows a bit of doubt. When he is about to ask, he turns around and sees Mu Yan looking at him thoughtfully, the expression of the blood vein bell on his chest. His body suddenly stiffens. The honor demon, who has always been cold, does things his own way and never bothered to explain, suddenly has a strong desire to live at this moment. He quickly says in a cold voice, I didn't. Except for Ning Yanxin, I have never had another woman. Yen Yen, you are my only daughter. Chapter 40-31. Mu Yan can't help but laugh when she sees the man pretending to be calm, but actually panicking. She also unknowingly heaves a sigh of relief in her heart. At least Ning Yan's sincerity is not wrong. At least her biological parents gave birth to her because of their undying love. Daddy. Mo Lian hears Jun Shirtian's words like being struck by lightning. What are you talking about? How can you only have one daughter, Jun Mayan? Look at my face. I really am your daughter. Jun Shirtian sneers. How many daughters does this Soon have? Don't tell me this Soon doesn't know. You and this Soon have no relationship. This Soon's patience is limited. Get out of the demon imperial city yourself, or let this Soon destroy your magic core and throw you out of the abyss.
No.
You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. I'm also your daughter. Mo Lian cries herself hoarse. Why is it that both of us are daughters? But you dote on her without any principles, but don't put me in your heart at all? You say I'm not your daughter, then why do I look so similar to you?
Tell me.
Jun Shirtian's face shows a look of disgust. His tone becomes impatient. What reason does this Soon have to explain to you? Since you don't want to scram, then this Soon will send you to scram. With a wave of his hand, a red thread appeared in the air and wrapped itself around Ink Lotus.
Ah.
Mo Lian lets out a mournful scream and struggles with all her might, but the black and red threads become tighter and tighter, directly entering her flesh. That originally beautiful face was cut into pieces in an instant. It was extremely ugly. Seeing this scene, Xue Jiai immediately heaves a sigh of relief. The fingers holding the demon blade also become happy and caressing. Good. Lord Demon Lord is being so lenient, that means he really has no relationship with Mo Lian. Thinking that if Mo Lian was a princess, she would have to pay respects to her and listen to her orders. Xue Jiai simply wants to vomit. It would be best if she could directly kill this disgusting woman and turn her into ashes. Xue Jiai's face shows an excited and longing expression. Her cheeks are flushed red. But the next moment, her dream is shattered. Lord Demon Lord, please be lenient. A warm and magnetic voice suddenly sounded out in the priest hall. At the same time, a green radiance flickered and enveloped Mo Lian's body, isolating the dark red threads released by Jun Shirtian. When the old man standing behind Mu Yan heard this voice, his entire body suddenly trembled. His hands tightly clenched into fists, and his teeth almost broke. He used all the strength in his body to prevent himself from losing control of himself. Instead, he does his utmost to restrain his trembling and lowers his head, hiding his stooped figure behind Mayan. Mu Yan looks back at him without leaving a trace. She takes out a talisman that conceals her aura and sticks it on his body. Almost at the same time, a man wearing a gray robe slowly landed in the priest hall and bowed to Jun Shirtian. Priest Zhongli pays his respects to Lord Demon Lord. Then he looks at Mayan, the corners of his mouth slowly curling up. Paying respects to your highness. Mu Yan slightly narrows her eyes, sizing up the man in front of her. He was about 35 or 36 years old. His skin was pale, his eyes were dark green, and his appearance was delicate and weak. At first glance, he looked like a sickly and weak young man, completely inconsistent with the supreme identity of the Demon Emperor's priest. Chapter 40-32. Zhongli's expression was clearly very gentle, with a light and breezy calmness, but Muyen inexplicably felt that the way he looked at her made her feel uncomfortable all over, as if she was being stared at by a wild beast hidden in the dark. Master, Master, save me. I don't want to be driven out of Priest Hall. Emolian knelt in front of Zhongli, crying as she tugged at his clothes, begging for help. Zhongli looked down at him and said gently, Emolian, the person you offended today is Her Highness. If you want the Demon Lord to forgive you and allow you to stay in the Priest Hall, then kneel down and apologize to the princess. Hearing this, Emolian's face distorts for a moment. She looks at Mayan with jealousy and resentment. She would rather die than kneel and apologize to Mayan. However, just as the words of rejection reached the tip of her tongue, her body involuntarily trembled when she met Zhongli's warm gaze. I understand. Emolian grits her teeth and kneels down towards Mayan. She deeply kowtows her head to the ground and says in humiliation, Your Highness, Emolian has just offended you. I ask that you be magnanimous and forgive me. Muyen looks at her and says with a smile that isn't a smile, I'm sorry, I don't want to forgive. Jun Mayan you. Your Highness. Zhongli gently pressed his hand on the furious Emolian's head and said in a gentle voice, I heard that the princess wants to go to the sky-high platform. The boundary around the 3 live stone is sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Now is the time when it is weak. If the princess wants to approach the 3 live stone, now is the best time. Zhongli slowly raised his head, the smile on his face almost impeccable. Your Highness, please allow me to open the Scarich Tower for you. Muyen looks at him meaningfully for a moment, then says in a low voice, Then I'll have to trouble Lord Priest. Jun Shirtian sees that Muyen is no longer pursuing the matter, so he coldly looks at Emolian and follows. This time, Shuejiai and Yao Dao did not follow him. This was because other than the High Priest, the Demon Lord, and the Princess, the other demons did not have the right to enter the Tower of Heaven. Wait. Zhongli's voice suddenly came from behind. Muyen turns around and finds that Zhongli's gaze is on the old man behind her. That pair of gentle and calm eyes became incomparably deep, and his voice was low and deep, as if revealing a hint of coldness. Your Highness, may I know who this is? Muyen smiles, casually saying, This is a servant I took in. His profession is also a demon priest. Why can't my priests enter the skyscraping platform? Or does Lord Zhongli have something against my servant? Zhongli was silent for a long time before he slowly withdrew his gaze from the old man. Your Highness must be joking. I wouldn't dare. Until the silhouettes of Mayan and the others disappear into the barrier of Tongtian platform. Shuejiai and Yao Dao also left the priest hall. The gentle smile on Zhongli's face suddenly disappeared. He found a chair and sat down. He held a glass of wine in his hand and took a sip as he stared coldly at Emolian, who was kneeling on the ground. What did I tell you before? Emolian crouched on the ground and shivered. Her face was filled with fear. Who told you to take off your veil? Who allowed you to reveal your relationship with the Demon Lord? Emolian said in a trembling voice, Master, it's my fault, but I really can't stand it. I'm clearly the daughter of the Demon Lord. Why can Muyen be pampered and pampered, but I have nothing? I can't accept this. I really can't. Emolian cried herself hoarse, indignant and unwilling. She did not raise her head, so she did not see the contempt in Zhongli's eyes. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.